Hi everyone, welcome to this real-time tutorial on how to paint a hare's eye in soft pastel. I'll use a mixture of soft pastel and some pastel pencils, and I'm working on Pastelmat paper. Enjoy the video. So at this point I'm midway through the hare's face, as I don't tend to work eyes first. And I'm using the black pastel pencil here just to block in the shape of the darkest area surrounding the iris. Now when you're drawing out a hare's eye, be careful to notice the shape of the pupil in the middle, especially if you're drawing a hare from a 3/4 angle like this is. You'll often notice that the pupil doesn't quite look oval or rounded evenly on both sides. Sometimes it has a slight kidney bean shape to it. So that's one thing I've noticed that hares tend to have uniquely in their eyes. I love painting eyes of all sorts, but hares have such big bulbs that they are such a joy to paint. And this is a great eye with a lot of reflection on it, and I'm going to show you how to build up the layers gradually and get that really glassy eyeball look. So still just using the pastel pencil, filling in some of the dark areas first. At this point I'm really trying to tweak my earlier drawing stage and make sure that each curve of the eye is how it is in the reference. So at this point I bring in some yellow 15, and you can see that even with the bigger unison stick I can still get quite precise marks just by using a small edge of the pastel. And I pick up a few browns, start layering in some colour, and I'm not leaning very heavily here. It's really not hugely different to working on velour in some ways. I normally use a pastel paper called velour, if you haven't seen any of my videos before. And this time I was trying out Pastelmat for an animal for the first time. And I definitely found that it was easier to get very, very crisp detail on the Pastelmat, where sometimes that's just not possible on the velour. I can get a lot of detail on velour, but it does end up having a softer finished look. And I'm not entirely sure that I want more crisp detail in my work. I've been aiming to get away from very sharp detail in the past years, trying to become a bit more painterly. But I do enjoy nice crisp detail sometimes too. And Pastelmat's definitely a great paper for that. If you want every line, every little mark to be really defined, then that's definitely easier done on the Pastelmat. And I use the pastel pencils just as I would before to come back in and neaten those marks that I've made with the bigger pastels earlier. And I spend the next while really tweaking at the outer edges of the eye, building up the colour of the iris. Similar to everything else, I tend to work from background to foreground, and in this case I suppose I was working the background iris colour before adding the pupil in. It's always easier that way around. There's such a mixture of lovely warm brown earths along with some more vibrant yellow tones. And the unison pastels work really nicely on this paper. And I'm using some Faber-Castell pastel pencils along with that. And I just used a paper stump or tortillon there. Sometimes if my finger is too big to blend an area, I can use one of these tools just to blend the pastel into the paper. And just trying to fan out some of the nice bright orange pastel that I applied earlier. And I can use the pencil just to tweak that, push the pigment around. It's exactly what I would normally do on my other pastel paper, so very similar techniques. And I just take my time making sure that the outline of the iris is just right. Getting the curve and the shape of this is so important. I always find the 3/4 view of any eye is probably the most difficult. So really pay attention to those angles. And just using the lighter pastel pencil. And I can come back in with the dark pencil. So you can see how I can push it around and eventually get it the way I want it. And now I take some black pastel and start to fill in the pupil. So before you go adding any highlights, you always need to work from dark to light. Make sure you have those lower dark layers down before adding any highlights. And at this point, I'm just starting to think about where some of that reflection crosses right over the eyeball, across the iris. And I'm at this stage really just plotting out where that might go, using the lighter pencil. But I will come back in with some smaller shards of the soft pastel as they make the most vibrant marks. Really, I tend to use the pencils to move things around, make very minor adjustments. But there's no beating the big soft pastels for vibrance of colour and the strength of the marks you can make. So after making the pupil nice and dark, this is the first hint at some highlight. And I'm using some white, a very tiny piece of soft white pastel. And you can see how crisply and how strongly that goes, even on top of something as dark as black. And I come back in with some pastel pencil, try and move that around a little. All the time looking at my photo reference, just making sure I'm getting this the right shape. And I don't want to use entirely white, as often you'll see some sky or something else reflected in the eye. So I pick up some lovely vibrant blue and I add that into the mix of the reflection. And I don't have to worry about getting the reflection on in a perfect shape, as I can always come back in with the pastel pencils, reshape things. And I'm just starting to find that little row of fur which frames the darkness of the eye. Equally as important as the eye, just really helps the contrast of the dark eye stand out. If you're interested in seeing how I paint all the fur of the hair, I have another video coming very soon on Patreon. Also on Patreon, I'm doing a full-length real-time tutorial on how to create my out-of-focus backgrounds using this piece and another painting of a hare. So if you haven't already, please do visit me over on Patreon. It's thanks to all the guys who are supporting me there that I can make lots more of these videos. So if you can't help me out on Patreon, even just hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. Lots more content coming here on YouTube very soon. And now just start shaping the reflection. As I said before, really paying attention to each line's curve. And I come back in with my little piece of white. And when I press a little bit heavier on the paper for something like this, I can get a really solid mark. All the time, just neatening that up, getting the shape of it just right. And now just adding a bit more blue violet to the reflection. Some of that sky reflecting in the hare's eye. And using my tortillon to come along and soften those edges, blend everything together. The last couple of minutes I spend mainly making minor adjustments, tweaking that reflection. I'm able on the Pastelmat and at this scale to get quite a lot of detail into that little reflection, so some little lines to show the eyelashes of the hair, shadows of the eyelashes in the reflection. And I find on the Pastelmat it's quite easy to keep everything nice and crisp and refined. And I really like that. Even though I like the more painterly approach, I've definitely really enjoyed working on this on Pastelmat, so hopefully some more tutorials coming on Pastelmat in the near future. I think definitely for smaller portraits where I want to get a lot of detail in a face, I may well choose Pastelmat from now on. And I have several other papers ready to try out as well, so I'll hopefully be making some videos to compare in the near future. I hope you've really enjoyed this and found it helpful. Pastel is such a versatile and brilliant medium, and I love being able to bring you these videos, helping you hopefully to explore your own world of pastel. So thanks for watching, and until next time, happy pasteling.